Day 163. Major Stillman arrived at the dam at 6:45 a.m. Tyler Hobbs was already there waiting. Major Stillman wanted to know what had happened and where he had been. Tyler told him the whole story about the four men who had held him and his group hostage in their home and how he had managed to escape. The Major wanted to know who they were, but Tyler explained that he had never seen them before. He informed the Major that he lost a couple men and recruited three more, and that the Sons of Liberty were ready to continue their mission. As far as Tyler knew, he was fighting a righteous revolution. Major Stillman was just a disgruntled military officer who was screwed over by the higher-ups and the system, and had a score to settle. What he didn't know was that the Major was part of a much larger plot, a game of chess in which Tyler and his group were merely pawns. Buddy Tanner and Lee were camped out on the ridge overlooking the trading post. When Lee told Buddy to come quickly, he had to see this, he explained. Buddy bellied up to the crest of the ridge, prone, and lay next to Lee. He focused his binocular on the street below and saw them. It was Hammer, hands bound, riding on horseback, led by an unknown man. Behind him was another man, dead, and draped over the saddle of his horse. At the end of the line was Carl Fairley, riding with his AR-15 stock resting on his thigh, pointed straight up in the air, his right hand holding the pistol grip, index finger extended out straight against the upper receiver. The man in front had a lever-action .30-30 draped across his lap, holding onto it with his right hand as well. With his left hand, which was bound to his right hand, Hammer held a fist with the thumb pointing in the downward direction. It was unnoticeable to all, but Lee spotted it. It told him and Buddy that, during the events that led to his capture, Roger had not been terminated. Buddy just deduced, rightly, that the man draped over the saddle of the second horse was, in fact, Little Bear. Lee informed Buddy that he was confident he could take both men with a single shot each, without a problem. The Board of Governors meeting was coming to order upstairs from the trading post. McMillan, Henderson, Pastor, and Ish Patel were all in attendance. Major Stillman was there as well. Major Stillman had Leroy McMillan's ear and his trust. McMillan quickly agreed without as much as a second thought when Major Stillman suggested a new nominee for one of the remaining board seats. Today, a local homesteader and longtime resident of the community would be voted on to the board by those in attendance. After the roll call and opening comments, the agenda was read. The new nominee, Mr. Tyler Hobbs, was introduced to the group. He was voted in unanimously. Carl Fairley arrived late after securing his prisoner and bringing the deceased man to the morgue. During the segment of the meeting that allows public comments, Carl rose to speak. He questioned the board as to their projected time frame for the military troop reduction and ultimate withdrawal. He and Major Stillman ended up in a heated debate about the merits of prolonged military presence in the region. Major Stillman had made one crucial mistake. Tyler Hobbs, like Carl Fairley, had always been against military presence in the region. His group formed on the premise that it was unconstitutionally imposed martial law. Their mission was to eliminate it. He was blowing up train trestles and attacking the post and killing soldiers. As far as he knew, Major Stillman was helping him succeed in that mission only because he too hated the military and had a score to settle with them. Now, here he was arguing to increase their involvement in the region. By bringing Tyler onto the board, Major Stillman exposed him to a side of himself that Hobbs had not seen or considered previously. It seemed to be contradictory to him. Major Stillman had underestimated Tyler Hobbs. He had taken him for an ignorant backcountry local yokel who lacked the ability to think independently. Nothing could be further from the truth. Tyler Hobbs was intelligent, His motives were sound, just like Carl's were. The difference was that, unlike Carl, Tyler Hobbs was willing to do terrible things to further the agenda that both he and Carl shared. He was starting to look at the Major in a new light. During the meeting, Major Stillman addressed the board on another issue, one that he had talked to Leroy McMillan into putting on the agenda. He explained the new laws being put in place nationally. The common good laws, as they were known, would empower the government to do whatever necessary to ensure the advancement of the rebuilding of the nation's infrastructure. He looked directly at Carl as he explained that the military now had the right to compel individuals and companies into giving them priority for providing goods and services. McMillan and Henderson agreed quickly, without hesitation, or thought, so it seemed. Pastor Sharps and Ish Patel looked at each other, obviously taken off guard. Both had questions and concerns and were not in favor of it. Major Stillman supplied everyone with a copy of the newly enacted laws, and smugly said, "No matter how anyone feels individually, this is law now." Then he looked directly at Carl and said, "As constable, you will naturally be expected to enforce these laws." Carl's instinct at that moment was to tell the Major what he could do with his laws, and the worthless badge he had given him, as he unpinned it from his coat and threw it across the room at him, effectively resigning his commission. As he closed his eyes and counted to 10, a technique he had learned to help him control his anger, he realized that he could not do that. His larger mission was too important. He knew that Captain Nunez, sitting in a sub-basement control room, hundreds of miles away, counted on Carl's help to achieve his group's mission objectives. Carl, holding the position of constable, was paramount to that mission. Carl did not like it, but he would take this one for the team. He looked at the Major and simply said, "I am aware of my duties as Constable Stillman." The Major gripped the insignia affixed to his collar and tugged on it for all to see, and stated to Carl, "That's Major Stillman, Constable." Carl pushed his chair back and got up. He walked toward the door. Major Stillman shouted, "Where do you think you're going, Constable? May I remind you that your presence here is a requirement of your position? This meeting has not been adjourned." Carl slammed the door shut as he walked out. As he walked into the street, Lee said to Buddy Tanner, "There's the lawman again, Buddy. I don't know why he won't just let me kill him. We won't get a better opportunity." Buddy grabbed his monocular and focused it on Carl. "Let me do the thinking," he told Lee. When Carl arrived home, he gathered the entire family into the living room and told Abigail and the kids that he wanted them all to go up to the hunting lodge that they had in a remote part of their property. "Plan on staying there for a while," he told them. He told Zach to bring the horses up there as well. "From now on, the entire horse operation will be run from there," he announced. He told Abigail that the same security protocols would be implemented. He would alert the watchers of the new location, and they would be by twice a day to check the status of the shade in the front window. Of course, nobody would ever see or hear them, or know when they would come. "I'm worried," Abigail told Carl. "You're scaring me." "Don't be scared, honey. Everything will be fine. It's just a security measure." He held her. "What about you?" she asked. "I'll be fine. I'll come up when I can," he promised. While Abigail and the girls began to pack, Carl took Zeb and Zach aside. He told them to stay armed at all times. "Locked and loaded," he said. "Anyone tries to come past the gate, make it clear that if they come in, they'll be treated as hostile intruders." "But what if they don't stop?" asked Zach. "Then treat them as hostile intruders," Carl answered. Zeb nodded. He understood his dad. As they turned to walk back into the house, Carl grabbed Zeb's arm. When he turned around to face him, Carl said, "That goes for the Army as well, son. Even the Major, Zeb asked. Carl just nodded. Carl reasoned that they would be safe up there because neither the Major nor any of his men even knew the place existed, let alone its location. What he couldn't have known was that Tyler Hobbs was working secretly with the Major. Tyler and Carl shared a mutual hunting companion in the late Buddy Bezio. Tyler had, in fact, been to Carl's hunting lodge several times when they hunted together in their younger days. Back in his office, he went into the closet to contact Captain Nunez. He would get word to him of what had transpired today and to change the security detail from his home to the hunting lodge. When he was through, he sat back in his chair at his desk. He stared up at the wall and read the framed quote by Edmund Burke, which hung there. It said, "The only thing necessary for the triumph of evil is that good men do nothing." Then, as he contemplated it, he thought of the Thomas Jefferson quote that states, "The tree of liberty must be refreshed from time to time with the blood of patriots and tyrants." He couldn't help but wonder if the latter would be necessary to avoid the former. He prayed. He prayed for his family's safety. He prayed for the patriots who would fight and die to protect this nation's freedoms. He prayed for God to heal this land. Carl Fairley hated killing with every fiber of his being. He detested violence in every form. He also knew, deep within himself, he would kill unflinchingly to protect his family and the innocent among us. He would do whatever was necessary to protect the freedoms that we still had left in this nation, in an effort to perpetuate those freedoms onto the generations to come. Carl Fairley was a sheepdog. He was one of the good guys. He made peace with God for what he feared he might be forced to do. Back at the church, Roger packed his belongings. Jillian came in to see him. She pleaded with him not to leave. She assured him he would be safe there. He explained the reasons why he must leave. Greg came in and asked Jillian to leave them alone. With tears in her eyes, she threw her arms around Roger. After a moment, she abruptly let go and ran out of the room. Greg asked one last time if Roger would reconsider his decision to go, knowing full well that he would not. Roger thanked Greg for coming. Greg said when he asked to see him, it sounded urgent, so he came right away. Roger explained that he gave it much thought, and he considered all his options for leaving. He then told Greg that he wanted to escort Callie and the kids to the Ozarks to find her family. After Aaron was killed, the Major had promised to provide her with an escort, but later reneged when the attacks started happening. Greg thought about it for a while and finally said, "You know how crazy that is? Nobody even knows where that compound is located other than the name of the town. To travel there with a woman and two small kids, one an infant, your chances of making it are near non-existent." Roger assured Greg he knew the risks. He explained that it was just something he had to do. "Greg, I have led a wicked life. I've done things I can't even speak about. Horrible things, evil things. Coming here and finding salvation from God has changed my life in ways I never could have imagined. I need to do this. You see how unhappy she is. She needs to be with her family. Her kids need it too. Everything here reminds her of Aaron and the way he was killed. She needs to heal. She needs to move on. If not me, if not now, when? This may be her only chance. Let me do this. It's the only way I can repay the love and the kindness you all have shown me." Greg thought about it for a moment and told Roger he would ask Callie what she thought. Roger explained to Greg that he had to leave right away to avoid the chance of Buddy finding him there. He told him he would hike 2 miles east on the Powerline Trail, that he would wait there for 3 days. If Greg did not bring them, then he would know she refused his offer. Greg nodded, He hesitated for a moment. Roger looked at him and just said, "I'm not going to hug you, brother." Greg told him, "Get out of here, Airborne. You're burning daylight." He turned, grabbed his rucksack, and walked up the hill toward the trail. Thanks for listening. Please hit that thumbs up button. And if you're not already subscribed to my channel, please consider doing so. Stay tuned next week as we see if Callie takes Roger up on his offer to escort them to the Ozarks, and as Major Stillman increases his efforts to gain control in the region. Also, a big thank you to all my subscribers who together brought me to that 1,000 subscriber threshold last week. God bless you all.